Welcome to this special documentary presentation. Today, we're diving into a literal 19th century masterclass on wealth from none other than the legendary P.T. Barnum. We're going for a truly immersive experience. Okay, let's get into it.
So Barnum fundamentally believed that in a land of opportunity, making a living is actually, well, kind of straightforward. But that brings us to a really fascinating question. If making money is so easy, why do so many people completely fail to keep it? Retaining that wealth, that is the true challenge. It's the ultimate trap, and it catches almost everyone completely off guard.
To unpack Barnum's blueprint, we've structured this documentary into 5 key areas. First, the paradox of wealth. Second, laying the foundation. Third, mastering your operations. Fourth, the power of advertising. And finally, number 5, the ultimate currency. All right, let's kick things off with Chapter 1, the paradox of wealth, keeping what you make.
Barnum makes this absolutely brilliant distinction between true and false economy. He tells this hilarious story about a hostess who absolutely refused to burn 2 tallow candles at the same time, just to save a couple of pennies. That right there is false economy. Because while she felt super frugal sitting there in the dark, she would then turn around, go to the village, and blow $20 or $30 on completely unnecessary furbelows and ribbons. True economy isn't about being cheap or penny pinching. It's just the simple, rational discipline of making sure your income always exceeds your outgo. Let me give you a crazy example. Barnum knew a guy whose sudden prosperity led his wife to buy a $30,000 sofa. But of course, the spending didn't stop there. By month 3, they suddenly needed matching carpets and sideboards. By year 1, they realized the old house was way too small for all this fancy new furniture, so they literally built an entirely new house. Fast forward 10 years, and that single sofa had saddled them with an $11,000 yearly upkeep. They were basically pushed right to the edge of bankruptcy. The big takeaway? Pride and vanity will absolutely devour your worldly possessions if you let them.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, laying the foundation, vocations, locations, and debt.
Now we have to talk about debt, specifically debt for consumables. Barnum has this incredibly stark warning for it, calling it working for a dead horse. Think about it. When you go into debt for what you eat or drink or wear, you're paying interest on something that is literally already gone. Your creditor wakes up richer while you sleep because interest, it works against you night and day, rain or shine. Money is a terrible, terrible master when you owe it. But if you invest it securely, it becomes the most devoted servant in the world.
Another huge foundational pillar is picking your actual career. You have to align your work with your natural inclinations. Barnum freely admitted he had absolutely zero mechanical aptitude. He said if he'd been forced into watchmaking, he would have just idled away his time and been utterly miserable. You've got to select the right vocation based on your natural brain and your actual talents, not just what society thinks is a genteel or profitable business. You can't force a square peg into a round hole.
But here's the catch. Even the absolute perfect vocation will fail if you're in the wrong location. Barnum tells this story of a really sharp showman he met in London who was displaying the dirtiest wax figures you could possibly imagine. The guy had incredible natural talent for show business, but his location was completely holding him back. Barnum told him, look, you need to relocate. Go to America where there's actually elbow room. And the guy actually listened. He moved, he capitalized on this massive new market, and eventually amassed $60,000. A bad location will literally waste great talent.
Okay, Chapter 3, Mastering Your Operations, System and Focus. Barnum was a massive fan of the elder Rothschild's paradox, be cautious and bold. Now, that sounds like an oxymoron, right? But caution without boldness means you never actually dare to take action, leaving your business totally stagnant. On the flip side, boldness without caution, that's just reckless speculation that ends in disaster. The secret is to exercise meticulous caution when you're laying out your plans, and then switch to unwavering boldness when it's time to actually execute them.
Let's rapid fire through some of Barnum's most crucial operational rules. First off, focus is everything. Do not scatter your powers. A constant hammering on one nail is what drives it home. Second, be systematic, but don't get paralyzed by endless red tape. Third, read trustworthy newspapers to stay informed, or you're literally going to be left out in the cold. Fourth, beware of those risky outside operations that you don't actually understand. And lastly, never endorse a friend's financial note without solid security, or you could very easily ruin both of you.
Barnum also powerfully noted that personal exertion is just non-negotiable. The eye of the employer is often worth more than the hands of a dozen employees. You can't just blindly trust agents or employees to run the show. You have to personally understand every single detail of your own business. And hey, when you make mistakes yourself, you're just buying the best kind of experience.
Which brings us to Chapter 4, The Power of Advertising, Sowing to Reap.
So Barnum uses this brilliant agricultural metaphor for advertising. He says you must consistently sow information out to the public about your genuine, high-quality goods long before you can ever expect to reap the financial rewards. I mean, you can't reap first and sow later, right? That's impossible. You have to invest in broad, persistent advertising. And if your product is actually good, you will absolutely reap a returning base of fiercely loyal customers.
To see this in action, look at one of the greatest marketing stunts in history. Barnum auctioned off the very first ticket to a Jenny Lind concert. This local hatter named Jenin bought it for an absolutely astronomical $225. Well, the next morning, newspapers telegraphed that story everywhere, from Maine to Texas. The whole country was asking, who on earth is Ginin the Hatter? He became a national sensation literally overnight. And the ROI? Over the next 6 years, he sold 10,000 extra hats annually. He sowed audaciously, and man did he reap exponentially.
But advertising is also about hacking fundamental human curiosity. Barnum once saw this simple little swing sign outside a store that literally just said, "Don't read the other side." Well, of course he read the other side. And so did everybody else. That incredibly unique, striking approach drew people right into the store, and then the merchant's good service is what actually kept them coming back.
Finally, we arrive at Chapter 5, The Ultimate Currency, Character and Integrity.
Barnum grouped his rules on human interaction around one really core truth. Politeness and civility are the best capital you will ever invest. First, treat your patrons politely. Nobody wants to give their hard-earned money to a business only to be treated poorly. Next, be charitable, but specifically focus on helping those who are actually willing to help themselves. Keep your business secrets to yourself. Seriously, don't blab. And above everything else, avoid false weights, measures, and deceit.
Because at the end of the day, integrity, that uncompromising honesty, is the true foundation of all success. Barnum completely destroys the myth that dishonesty pays. A lack of principle permanently closes every single avenue to true success. If the public ever doubts your integrity, you are finished. Uncompromising honesty truly, literally, is the best policy. I want to leave you with this really provocative final thought. Barnum fully believed that the desire for wealth is totally laudable, but only if you recognize that money is just a tool. True prosperity is actually found in elevating the scope of human happiness. So, as you go out and apply these golden rules, ask yourself, will you accept the responsibilities of your wealth and actually use it as a friend to humanity? Thank you so much for joining me for this documentary presentation. I really hope these historical insights have given you a completely fresh perspective on the timeless art of making and, most importantly, keeping your fortune.